And welcome back to the channel, and more importantly, a good day to all. Well, you can see that we're staring at the engine compartment of our 2016 2500, and I figured I'd bring you along for a little bit of maintenance we're doing here. As we were getting prepped for our annual inspection, because the area of the country that I live in, you have to get a safety and emissions inspection every year, and one of the safety items they look for is to make sure that all your lights are functional. Now, I've made mention on this particular model of 2500 that in the past we actually did an aftermarket HID conversion. So what you're seeing here, this lens is actually, or was, a halogen-based projector off of a Ram 1500 that we sent down to a website called theretroshop.us. Jeremy is a fantastic guy down there, and he took out the halogen projector and put in an actual HID projector and the accompanying bulb. We also had the lower part of the lens you see here, where this would normally be incandescent for the running light and the turn signal light, switched over to diode dynamics switchback, which means this will be white in the running position / park position, and then it will flash yellow for the turn signal. And then we also had the side yellow reflector changed out to clear as well. And we've been running these for a number of years, and over the years as technology changed and we had to replace HID bulbs, we ended up upgrading the ballasts to some upgraded ballasts in relation to that. And also remember that in this truck originally came with a set of quad headlights, quad halogen headlights. So we actually not only did the conversion to HID in this truck, but we also did the conversion to use projectors. As a matter of fact, these lenses out of this truck, if you remember, we put them in our project truck, our 2012 red Ram that you see here. And so these lenses, these quad headlight lenses, were actually the lenses that came originally out of this 2500 here. So I've already got this one. As you can see, we've got the grill guard off and the front grill out in order to access the hardware to get these lenses out of here. So you just got a bolt on the top, a bolt on the bottom, and you got Dodge's Ram's typical release, which is up here inside the wheel well. You just reach in there and pull down a little piece of plastic, releases the headlight, and you can kind of pop it out of position. But one of the things we're going to be doing today is not only addressing our failed ballast and getting that replaced, we're also going to be removing the resistors that we have in here. Now, originally, because this truck was an an incandescent, remember the quad incandescent, it's not set up to see an HID system, let alone the LEDs that are now down here, where normally what the truck looks for is an incandescent load. So it's looking for a much higher amperage draw and resistance values, or different resistance values, but a higher amperage draw off the lights up here, so that the body computer knows whether the light is working or isn't working. And the early days of doing this, and it's still a very common practice, is to fool the system into thinking that you still have incandescent lights installed, even though you have LEDs. And various manufacturers do this different ways. You've probably heard them called error cancellators, error cancelers, CAN bus eliminators, CAN bus circuits, something called CAN bus, and or some mix of error cancellation. And what it is normally it's a resistor, and that resistor is just there to add some increased load on that line, basically bumping up the resistance, which then bumps up the current draw, which then the body computer thinks that what it sees is an incandescent bulb in here and not an LED. So like I said, when we first got these in, we had to do two conversions on this truck. One wiring harness to take care of the fact that we're going to HID bulbs, and another wiring harness to cover for the fact that we switched this truck out from quad headlights to projectors. So what I'm going to show you here in the back is a little bit of the wiring that kind of takes place. Let's just get our lens assembly out of the way here. And what we're going to see is that's the first adapter plug, because these projector lights utilize a single plug in the back versus the older sets of lenses that would normally, and I'll show you those here, have potentially just two plugs coming off the factory harness you see here. This one here is for the turn signal / parking light, and this one here is for high and low beams. And you can see the adapter harness just plugs into that and brings you out to the single connector that now the projector lenses use from the factory. The second adapter harness, which is going to be a little bit harder to see, but you can kind of see remnants of it here. And what this adapter harness does is allow you to run the HID systems. Now, this particular adapter harness is what's called, and if I pronounce this incorrectly, I do apologize. It's Miramoto's 2015 plus low beam adapter harness. And what that means is, on the back of this, as part of the conversion, is that you're going to see a little plug right here just kind of dangling out the bottom of this dust cap, along with the connectors, the connection points to the HID bulbs, HID bulb that you see there, I should say. But you'll see that one there. What this does is, remember, by default, the only in and out connection you have is that little oval connection there that connects to this adapter here. So when you engage the headlights, in pretty much any vehicle, normally the first headlight you're going to get, and especially in this case of this Ram, is going to be low beam. So the low beam signal is going to go into this plug here, and then they just split it out to this little adapter, this little pigtail plug you see coming out the bottom of the dust cap. That then in turn gets plugged into here, and all we're doing at this case is that we're taking the low beam feed, so the feed from the truck and the body computer that would normally turn on the low beam headlight, and it's running the relay. Now you're probably not going to be able to see it because it's pretty far in there, but I just got it kind of nestled in here, and it's been in here for a number of years, so it kind of blends in with everything. But there's a relay pack. Remember that relay harness I was telling you about earlier, that Mopar spec 2015 plus harness. It takes the low beam feed and energizes a relay. That relay then takes a separate power tap that you see here off of the battery, and then uses that to power the ballasts for our HID lights. So once again, when you first turn the headlights on, the headlight circuit in this truck is actually energizing a relay, which then takes a separate power feed and uses it to drive the ballasts. Now, why that is being done is for a number of reasons. One, just due to the power draw that some of these ballasts take, and I'll show you one of them here. So this is an updated, I'm going to say this incorrectly, I do apologize, so I'll show it to you. Hilux 2 AlfaOBD CAN bus aerolite cancellator. This is a 35 watt HID ballast, and you can see there you got a voltage range of 9 volts to 16 volts with a nominal 13.2 volt driver, and takes about 3.2 amps per ballast to get this bad boy to fire that HID bulb and get it to do what it needs to do. So they're using most typical harnesses will use a relay and power separately off the battery and just use the truck's low beam signal as a trigger. So the truck thinks it's powering the low beam element, but in reality it's actually just powering a relay. Now that relay is not going to draw enough current to make the truck see what it wants to see, in other words being a low beam bulb, and thus you'll get errors on it. You'll get, you know, headlight lamp errors, light out errors, however your truck is going to show it to you. And what you would also potentially get is some flickering as well, because what will happen is the truck will think the bulb's out. And on a RAM, after so many attempts of it telling you the bulb's out, it will actually power that circuit off through the body computer, because it thinks there's a short or a fault or something along that nature. And then when it does that, it'll just kill the light circuit completely. So if it kills the low beam circuit completely, it disenergizes the relay and thus kills power to the ballast, which in then turn, once the power to the ballast is done, then obviously the light goes out. So in order to get around that, what they're doing, if we look at this plug here, and I've got it unplugged for now, but you'll see that it kind of, it tees off and goes to a capacitor, and this capacitor is meant to stop flickering. That's one other thing the truck will do, from my understanding, is it'll send a PWM signal to the bulb, and it kind of pulses the bulb, pulse width modulation. It pulses that bulb to tell it that it's in good standing and it's working, and basically the bulb isn't blowing. Well, that can have an effect on that relay, can cause that relay to chatter, and that capacitor is in there to kind of smooth out the power going into that capacitor to keep that relay from, energizing, disenergizing, energizing, disenergizing. Then what they also do is that you'll see a Y adapter on here. Now, I mount my resistors, and I'll show this to you, inside the fender well, way back here, so that way it kind of keeps all the heat and the big chunky bits out from behind the headlight and makes it easier to kind of seat things back in. But it runs in parallel with the tap going to your relay, again, headlight low beam. So not only is the truck powering the coils on the relay, what it thinks is the low beam light, but it also has a set of resistors in parallel with it, and that resistor is adding in that additional load, making the truck think that what it's actually powering and talking to is an incandescent light bulb, when in fact it's not. So again, it uses the resistors to fool the truck into thinking that this plug is still plugged into low beam headlights, when in fact it's actually running a set of relay coils on a relay pack. And it also has a second set of resistors. Now, this adapter, remember, we had quad headlights here. We never had a projector set of headlights. Now, this is an adapter you can get for 4th gen Rams that allow you to run these newer style projector lights on like an old dual or quad headlight system. But what happens is if you do like we do here, where on the projectors, the turn signal and the marker, once again down here at the bottom, is LED and not incandescent. Remember, the truck is looking for that incandescent load, that higher resistance, higher amperage load. So once again, you'll see here, remember, this is the connector for our parking light / turn signal. If you follow it down, you'll notice it branches off, comes out to a Y adapter, goes over here, and then it plugs into yet another set of resistors that's doing the same thing as it does for the relay pack over here. So it's making the truck think that it sees an incandescent bulb in here, when in fact it's actually driving a much lower amperage set of LEDs inside of our assembly. And to show you what we'd been running in this truck for a number of years now. Now, I have it disassembled, but normally this is assembled with an additional piece that comes up here, and our ballast mounts to it, and it kind of hangs. Just to show you, I'll show you this on the passenger side when we take it out. You can see 2 holes that come through here to the top of the fender, and normally inside the fender, this is just kind of hanging right about in here. So I'll sneak them in through here, get them mounted, and again, they'll just kind of hang inside the fender well, roughly right about in here. But you can see the 2 resistor packs we have here. So one set of these resistors handles the parking / turn signal light inside this projector assembly, and the other set of resistors was the one where we're talking about where the low beam is powering a resistor pack, actually a relay pack, but it's talking to a set of resistors to get the truck to think that it's talking to that old low beam headlight. And again, these are being done in order to keep the truck from throwing a code and thinking that there's a bulb out condition when there's not. Now you'll notice even our newer ballast comes with an error cancellator, which in my opinion in this case it isn't really needed on this setup, because this particular wiring harness, the way it's constructed, is using this set of resistors for that purpose. So again, these aren't unique to a particular make, model, or a particular setup. So this is here in the event that you don't have a set of resistors like this here. So what we're going to do, just to kind of, and that was a little bit of a long discussion, I do apologize, is that we're going to use AlfaOBD, since this is a Chrysler product, obviously. We're going to go in there and make adjustments to the body computer and tell the truck that it has HID headlights and LED for the front turn signal, which means we can take all of this, deinstall it. We'll take the resistor pack out of the passenger side as well, because it'll no longer be needed, and then we should be able to kind of discard these and not reinstall these. Again, they did the job. They do work quite well. Nothing against the manufacturer, nothing against the design. They do get the job done, but we're going to take advantage of the fact that we do have AlfaOBD now, and we can kind of program in around and not have to use these resistor packs anymore. Now, you probably noticed that we also have, and we put these in a number of years ago as well, LED fog lights, which also have a set of these per light. So there's another 4 of these, 2 per side, that will also be deinstalling and removing as part of this, which will be nice. Because I'll be honest with you, you got to be careful when you mount these resistors. If you have to use these with your particular setup, they do get quite hot when they're running, which is why we have it mounted to a little, again, as you can see, a little piece of angled aluminum, and it would normally just kind of hang in here and just kind of float mid-air and be able to use that air circulation around them to help keep them cool. You definitely don't want these resistors to be hanging around anywhere around plastic or other wiring or anything where they might melt through, because they can get hot enough to melt, which is another reason why I would like to use AlfaOBD and just tell the truck that it has LEDs and HIDs installed, and that will get it to not look for such a high current draw and or a higher resistance value. Should keep our bulb out indicators from illuminating, and also allow us to get rid of these so we don't have to worry about the excess heat accumulation that we would have had in the past when running them. So with that being said, let me go ahead and work on getting the passenger assembly out and its ballast out. I'm going to go ahead and replace the passenger ballast, HID ballast, while we're here, because since we did have a failure of the driver's side, and when we order these they come as a pair, I'm just going to go ahead and change them out. Since we have to deinstall the assembly anyway to get the old resistors out, we might as well just go ahead and change out both ballasts while we're at it. So I'm going to work on getting the passenger side headlight out and getting its assembly out, and I'll bring it back. So one moment. And welcome back. So I'm going to show you the passenger side here, because it's a little less wiring coming into the passenger side, so it's kind of easier to see this. But this is our projector lens adapter, because again we went from the quad headlight system to a projector setup. You can see the 2 factory connections coming into this splitter. You can see that we have that same Y splitter. So once again, we've got the parking / turn signal light that comes over here, hits this Y, and then plugs into a set of resistors. And then we have our output wire for our low beam, because again, when we hit low beam, it's going to come in on this connector, but then it's going to exit the housing and then plug into this connector here, which then goes into a set of resistors. Maybe hard. There you go. You got a good shot of it there. You can see they're mounted just like on the driver's side in here inside the fender, inside behind the light assembly. And again, we went this way with it years ago because there's not a lot of room back here where these headlight assemblies kind of slide into place, and it was just easier to kind of utilize the nice cavernous area behind the headlight assembly right where this fender is, just to kind of hang all the resistors and the ballast and things of that nature, and just kind of get it out of our way. And let's see what we got here. So that's coming off our relay pack. If you remember, that's the power for our ballast. So what I'm going to work on is getting these two bolts out of the top here, and just kind of again pull that assembly out, and then I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So this is the assembly out of the passenger side that we put together, and once again, the way this kind of hangs itself in there is, if this was the passenger side, it would just kind of hang this way inside the fender well, inside that space behind the headlight assembly. So all we did was just years ago take some rough cut aluminum, some angle braces, and kind of mount everything together as you see here. So we've got our ballast for our HID system up here, and again, we're just going to replace this one since we're here and since we got a failure of the driver's side. So this one's being replaced more of a preventative measure. But you can see the resistor pack, much like the driver's side resistor pack, down here at the bottom. So what we'll end up doing, and the plan is, and you can see that there was our Y connections we were looking at earlier. So once again, one resistor pack was there to eliminate the errors that you would receive for parking / turn signal, because they're now LED, and the other one was there to eliminate the errors that we would potentially get from the low beam headlights, because the low beam headlights now again drive that harness, which then power the HID system. So we'll be dropping this lower assembly off of this adapter. And in case you're curious, no, this is not supporting the weight of this and this together. It's not being held together. This is just sitting here in a bracket. If we look behind it, you can see we got a cross brace piece of aluminum that actually attaches the top and bottom together and helps give it some rigidity. So we'll be doing, again, we're just going to be disassembling, assembling the new ones, and then prepping to get everything reinstalled again back behind those headlight assemblies. Now what we're also going to be doing is coming in here and removing, you know, the various Y adapters that we have in here. We're gonna go ahead and remove this capacitor as well. So rather than this Y adapter, I'll cover this more when we do the reinstall, but this is the driver's side. This would normally plug into that little low beam headlight dongle that you see coming out again out the bottom of the headlight assembly. What will happen is it'll plug in right into that piece there. So we'll be eliminating these two Y or about 3 Y connections here. One going to the capacitor, that'll be coming out, and then we'll be removing the Y adapters that would normally go to those relay packs. So we're again cleaning things up, getting rid of some, hopefully what will be unneeded resistors, and also cleaning up and simplifying our wiring a little bit while we're at it. So I'm going to get to work on this and getting these old one off and getting the new ones on and getting the pack reassembled for the driver's side, and then I'll bring you back. So one moment. And welcome back. So this is what we ended up with. Again, just the same as what you saw before. We've got our new ballast here in the center, and we just got the lower resistor bank that you saw removed. So we just retained the same mounting position and the same mounting hardware that we used with the old ballast, and we went ahead and left that back brace in that you saw earlier, just to kind of give this some rigidity. But again, what we're going to work on now is getting these units mounted again back behind the assemblies here. And just to show you, this is the one for the driver's side. Very similar setup, except it obviously just faces the opposite direction. What this is going to do is to show you, we can kind of take it like this and feed it between the fender and the bracket for mounting the rear of the headlight assembly, and just kind of work it back to get it into place where we have our 2 bolt holes through our fender here. So what I'm working on right now is just getting the old RTV scraped off. I will squirt a little bit of RTV underneath these mounting bolts that kind of come in through the top. You can see a little bit of old RTV still on these, and we need to get off. And that's just to help kind of seal this up against the frame, just so water isn't dripping down through our mount points. So I'm going to work on that, work on getting the rest of this RTV cleared off, and get the assemblies back in here, and then I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can kind of see it tucked in here, remounted and tucked back in here inside the fender liner there. We got our ground wire reattached. You may have saw it in the previous clip, but there is a blue ground wire that comes off of these ballasts. They want you to attach to ground. So up here, in case you were curious, it's just a bolt with a ground lead that goes to chassis ground, and of course then you can see the blue line that we've got tied into there. So it also helps to ground out that bracket as well. So what we're going to do on this side is that we're going to start removing these other pieces that we no longer need, such as, again, these 2 Y adapters for the low beam trigger. We're going to get our capacitor out of here, and of course cut a tie wrap here and get our Y splitters out. That used to go to our resistor packs that would normally be hanging off that bracket where that ballast is at. So let me get to work on pulling the pieces out of here, and then I'll kind of show you what it looks like once we've got all the excess pieces removed. So one moment. And welcome back. So just to show you with what we're left with is that now, as you can see, the ballast connection goes straight to the ballast. It no longer Ys and goes into an additional resistor bank. The plug that was here that came off for our turn signal / parking marker, that's just been taped up and secured with some fabric tape against the loom, so because that connection was no longer needed. So what we have left is our connections to our HID bulb, of course the main oval connection to the projector assembly itself, and of course that's our low beam trigger, which will drive our relay pack. So that's one of the items that we removed, or 2 of the items that we removed. You can see we removed the Y adapter going to the capacitor and such here off the driver's side. So as long as we can get all this to work like it's supposed to work, like I said, as you can see, it greatly neatens up and frees up our wiring. And once again, you can see our ballast just kind of chilling out back there, hanging from its bracket. So the next thing we need to do is go ahead and at least get the lights reattached. I'm going to set them up in here. Obviously we'll do some testing before we go, re-securing everything back down, but we're going to get our lights in here, get them attached, and I'll bring you back and we'll do the programming on the truck itself, and then we'll do some testing. So one moment. And welcome back. So I just want to cover one thing that's going to be different on the passenger side here, is that this little pigtail that comes out the back of here is just getting taped off and secured, because there'll no longer be anything here on the passenger side to plug this into. So this, unlike the driver's side, so the driver's side takes power from here to serve as the trigger for the relay pack, but over here on the passenger side, this literally just went straight into one of those 2 sets of resistors that you saw, again, just to load down the circuit and simulate the presence of the low beam bulb that would normally be in here. So we're just going to tape it up here on the passenger side, and on the passenger side the only connections you can see that we end up with are the ones for our HID bulb and of course the main connector for the assembly itself. So let me get the things reattached and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. I got you zoomed in. I'm just going to kind of hold the phone. I am screen recording the phone at the same time. Provided the screen recording turns out okay, we'll bring you back. But I've got the Bluetooth dongle plugged in the OBD2 port, and the truck sitting in the run position, but don't have the engine running, but it is in the run position. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach to Bluetooth. Yes, it wants access to Bluetooth. We're going to turn our Bluetooth on. And that is our OBD Link MX Plus. We're looking for there. Wait for it to connect. There we go. We are connected. And I'm going to go ahead and set that as default in the interface for AlfaOBD going forward. So what I'm going to select first is 2500. And we want the body computer. And this is a 2016, so we want the 20... So we got a 2013 plus power net and a 2016 plus power net. So I'm going to select a 2016 plus power net. And then we're going to connect. So it is connected to the body control module, which is cool. Now, down here at the bottom, if we click on the little icon, the car with the hood coming up, what I'm going to do first is scroll down here. And there should be an option for us to do a backup. Yeah, backup vehicle configuration to file. And I'm going to start that. It says it started. Please wait. Okay, completed successfully. Good deal. So it's always good to have a backup so you can go back and kind of compare the changes that you're going to make invent something goes wrong or you have to revert and back those changes out. You can kind of do it before and after and figure out, you know, what you changed or what you thought you changed. So if we grab a pull down now and go into car configuration change, select this option up at the top. Now I'm going to change this first one here. Now it seems to be head L-I-G-H-T. Oh, is it not under one word? Let's see. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. So it was headlamp, not headlight. High intensity discharge headlamps. Now, according to the forums, a lot of individuals, sometimes you have to set this, sometimes you don't. I'm going to go ahead and set it. Now, you'll see down here where it says quad headlamps enabled. It's already enabled. Now, I'm going to leave that enabled because that wiring harness that we're using, that Miramoto wiring harness, is set up in such a way that it's looking for this still to be a quad headlight system. Pull down there, so we want to set yes. Current setting is no. We're going to set that to yes. We're going to hit next. Now we're going to wait. Procedure completed. Perfect. Now, the next one I'm going to do, and some individuals like to do these one at a time and wait a few minutes, which I believe is the suggested course of action here, because sometimes if you don't, it doesn't take all the changes. I am going to make the other change that we want to make here. I'm going to go ahead and do them all at the same time here. If it doesn't work, we'll have to come back in here and verify it. So LED. Now, what we are looking for is LED front turn lamps present. So we're going to grab that one, because remember we have the switchback LEDs in here. And then we want to set that value to yes as well. And if we hit start, you'll see the current configuration is no. We're going to hit start on that, and we're going to wait. Procedure completed. Perfect. Now, what I'm going to do is come back into our key now that we've made our two changes. At the bottom, I'm going to disconnect from the car, and I'm going to shut the ignition off and let it go to sleep. I'm going to give it probably about 4 to 5 minutes here and then we'll give things a try. So let me pause here and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. Well, as you can see, we got the headlight back out. Now, just kind of pick up where we left off. I did go in and let the truck sit for about 5 minutes and verified in the AlfaOBD settings that it's still set to high intensity discharge is enabled, as well as the front LED turn signal is still enabled. Now, when we did some testing, just turning the headlights on, the driver's side was still dark, no light. Now, we verified yesterday when we were looking at this that we had 12 volts of the ballast when the headlights were on. We also took this headlight, put it on the passenger side, plugged it up, and the HID bulb worked fine. So we plugged a test HID light into here and did some testing. And even though there's 12 volts, some of you may know where this is going. There's 12 volts with no load. Once you load it down, that's it. Pretty much the circuit goes bye-bye. So our initial thought was that we had an issue with the ballast on here, which now isn't the case. Looks like the problem that we have is that we've got a bad power relay pack to this particular bulb. Probably just a bad relay or a bad set of contacts. Could have got some corrosion on them. However, in our testing, we're going to take it a step further. Now, since we're in here and we've already removed our resistors, we're going to remove this relay harness. Because remember, the relay harness, really its job is to take a direct battery feed off, use the low headlight as a switch source or a trigger source to turn the relay on and take a separate 12 volt feed from the battery and run it into each of our ballasts. Now, I did do some testing, and this goes back to what we were looking at earlier. Now remember, this little pigtail on these projectors, because they've been modified, comes out the bottom, and what this is the low headlight feed. So low beam headlight feed. That's a 12 volt feed when the headlights are on. Very, very similar to what that relay pack does. So all the relay pack again does is when it sees the low headlight circuit being turned on, it energizes the relay. So we did a bit of testing. Now that we can use AlfaOBD to alter the resistance and the setup on it so it doesn't look for as high a current draw, and it's aware that we've got LEDs and other items up front, I plugged the ballast feed or ballast source directly in to that little pigtail plug that comes out of the back of the housing there. Now, the reason why I did that was, remember, if you look at these ballasts, and I can show you the old one here in the cart. Now remember, these aren't specific. They're not specific to using a particular wiring harness or not. Now, you'll see it marked error canceller. What that is, for lack of a better word, the resistor, so to speak, and the ability for it not to trip up the body computer to make it think that the bulb is broken, because this is going to have a different current draw than an incandescent bulb. So with that being said, I just plugged that in, instead of coming off the relay harness, directly into the low beam headlight output of that housing, and lo and behold, it worked. Now, did we test it long term? No, but I did do it long enough to verify that the ballast is good and the HID bulb is good in there. So what I'm going to do, since I know the relay harness is bad either way, is I'm going to work on just getting this entire relay harness out of here. And then what we're going to end up with once we're done is just what you see here. We're going to retape that end up, because again, that was just the resistor load for the LED turn signals, which we no longer need. And we're just going to end up with this adapter and the one adapter that comes out the back of the tail housing, and that'll be it. And the rest of these adapter harnesses and this relay pack that you see down in there will all be removed. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on getting this HID relay harness out of here. I'm going to make some electrical changes on this side. Again, I'm going to plug the ballast directly into that low beam pigtail coming out of the back of the housing, and then I'll bring you back. So one moment. And welcome back. So we've got our HID relay harness deinstalled at this point. So in a sense, what's going to happen now is that the truck's own low beam circuit, rather than actuating a relay in a relay pack, is going to power the ballasts for our HID system directly. And hopefully, quote unquote, hopefully, with the AlfaOBD settings set to it being HID up front, and we may or may not have to tell it it's also LED headlights. We'll wait and see how it reacts. But we've got HID option turned on, and we've got the front turn signal LED option turned on. So with that being said, let me show you what the wiring kind of looks like here on the driver's side. So you can hopefully see right there the main plug on the bottom that comes in and plugs in. That is the projector adapter that allows you to, you know, adapt a 4th gen Ram to be able to use projector style headlights. And you can see the two factory connections here and here that plug into that. Now these are our HID bulb connections from our ballast, these smaller ones here. And then remember what we said we were going to do, and I did verify this with a voltmeter. Since we know this is our low beam 12 volt out that would normally go and actuate the relays in our relay pack to then provide power to our ballast, we just plugged into it directly. So that is the power line that now runs to the ballast directly. So rather than this running a relay pack, it's now going to run the ballast on each side. So if it's happy with this setup, and I'll get that in there better in a little bit later, don't worry, I'll bring it back when we do some testing. So if it's happy with this setup, it also fixes our problem on the passenger side of removing our resistors, because now that little plug for that 12 volt low beam is now powering the ballast on this side for this HID light. So it should see a nice load here to make it happy and to make it believe that it's talking to a headlight. And again, with these ballasts coming with these error cancelers, as they call them, or basically just resistor packs, or just to say it another way, it should be happy with it and hopefully not cause us any issues. So let me get this headlight assembly in there, and I'll bring you back and we'll do some little bit more testing. One moment. And welcome back. So we got the key in the ignition, run position, but not started, obviously. So we got a low beam headlight out on the, well, that may be old. Let's try it. Let's see if that error message comes back. Okay, so we got an HID and a runner. We got an HID and a runner. Beautiful. Perfect. So let's try turn signals. Oh, parking light out. Yeah, so we still have a turn signal there. It's getting mad at us. Now, I did set the parking light to LED on this one, but it may not be drawing enough amperage. Let's try that one. And we may have to put a relay harness back in here, but so far so good. That one's working, that one's working. Let's try our high beams. Okay, high beams are on. Good deal. We got our second bulb, and I did hear the shutters drop. You may not be able to hear it, but it kind of makes a mechanical sound because these HID projectors will drop the lens on the inside when you're in high beam. Let's see if we can hear it. You'll kind of hear a thud when they turn off. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, perfect. So let's try 4 ways. Yeah, so far it's not... Oh, parking light out. Yeah, it's definitely not happy with the parking lights not having those resistors on them. So we're good there. We're good there. Let's check our backs for giggles, although anything that we did shouldn't bother the backs. Yeah, backs are flashing fine. Okay, let's turn our hazards off. Turn our headlights off. Take our key out of the ignition, and we're going to let it rest a little bit. So right now, the only issue that we're having is that it's not too terribly happy with the parking lights. It thinks the parking lights, which is this bottom one here, again, which is now LED driven, is causing us an issue, and that's the reason why that item on the bottom had that resistor. Now I'm going to go check AlfaOBD, because remember, we turned the turn signal on to HID, but I didn't see if there was a parking light in there that could be set to, I'm sorry, we turned the turn signal to LED. Let me see if there's a parking light option within the AlfaOBD software, and then we'll set that and see if that takes care of the fault. So let me go check on that. One moment. And welcome back. Well, I did find a setting in here for the front park lights to be LED, so we're going to set those to LED, and we're going to see if that takes care of the issue that we were seeing with it thinking that the park lights were out. So just going to turn the key to run here, give it a few moments, and I am screen recording, so as long as the screen recording takes, I'll put it in the video. So let's get connected to our Bluetooth dongle. Yep, OBD link, MX Plus, and we're a 2500 body computer. And once again, we're going to go back into the 2016 PowerNet. Connect. We're going to come into the picture of the car with the hood up. Grab this down arrow, and we want to go into configuration change. I wish this list was in alphabetical order. There we go. Car configuration change. Select the option. Now we're going to search for LED again. Drop our pull now towards the bottom here. There's the front turn lamps, which are already present. There we go. LED front park marker. Well, it says lamps present. Let's check that out. Select a value. We're going to change that to yes anyway. You see it says no. So even though on the previous screen, it's okay, so never mind. I was reading present as it was there and it wasn't there. My apologies. So it says no. So we're going to change LED front park marker lamps to present. Or I should say to yes. In other words, we have LED ones. So let's hit start. Let's wait. Procedure completed. And once again, I'm going to come back to the key like I always like to do. We're going to disconnect. And awesome. So what I'm going to do now is turn the key off. Give the truck about 4 to 5 minutes just to rest. And then we'll come back and we'll give it another shot. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, we've given the truck a few minutes to rest here. Let's give things a shot. Okay, let's go ahead and turn our headlights on. Parking brake engaged. Yeah, I know that. Thank you for telling me. Oh, parking light out. Thanks for parking. Now that could be an old message because again, we kind of had things disconnected and such on both sides where we were playing around with things. What I'm going to do is just turn the headlights on. So there you go. We got our parking / marker light. We've got our headlight. Parking / marker and our headlight. Perfect. And let's try our turn signal. Oh, parking light out. It thinks it's out. Yeah, it's not happy with the parking circuits on these, even though we set alpha to tell it that it is set to LED. So, but it does work. Now the problem is that if it still continues to see that as being out, it will eventually cut power to that circuit, thinking there's an issue. Now it may just be intermittently thinking it's not there when it actually it is. Yeah, it's happy with that one. So far, no complaints. Now what I need to do, which I will do, I'll go in there and clear all the faults, and I'll try this again, but you can see our switchback is working. And if it continues to complain about that parking light being an issue, we've got some items that we can do to it to kind of address it. Okay, so no issues there. Let's go hazards. So yep, I can hear the switchback relay clicking. Yeah, I can hear them both clicking, so good there. We still got headlights now. So let's try our high beams again. Let's turn our hazards off. Hazards are on. I'm sorry, high beams are on. And yes, we got our high beam bulb there. And we got our high beam bulb there. And we've got our parking light marker and our parking light marker. Beautiful. Okay, so everything is working the way it's supposed to, other than just some intermittent blip where it thinks the parking, let's go ahead and turn those off, where it intermittently seems to think that the parking light is in op. So let me do a couple things. I'm going to plug back into AlfaOBD and I'm going to verify that the parking indicator is still set to LED, and I'm also going to clear all the faults just to make sure that what's popping up on the dash isn't an old message that it's still trying to clear. Because remember earlier when the headlight for the passenger side popped up even though it wasn't a fault? Well, remember, I had the passenger side resistor pack disconnected. There was nothing connected on that side for low beam feed at all. So in that case, it was just throwing up an old message that was basically hadn't cleared the fault yet. So I'm gonna plug a scan tool in, clear any faults that may be there, verify that setting with AlfaOBD, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. I gotta be quick because it's about 100 degrees out here and the GoPro is overheating. But you can see our scan tool here, you can see our body control module, you can see all our codes are in stored status. So they were setting as we were kind of playing and tweaking things, and it looks like they've since cleared. Now I tried a few more times here, and for now it seems fine. And that's not uncommon when you make changes with AlfaOBD, that sometimes you just have to turn the truck off and just let it set for it to realize that that has changed, and also for it to realize, you know, the codes that may have been out there because we were changing things around. It is now, you know, been able to clear those codes. So with that being said, it was a bit of a long video. I got one more thing left to do. We're going to also take the resistors off of the fog lights while we were here and working. And it's going to be a very similar change. We're going to take the resistors out. We're going to go into AlfaOBD and we're going to set the fog lights to LED to be present. So it's going to be the same process that you've seen in other parts of the video. I'll take you out here and show you where the resistors are and show you what it looks like with them removed. So let me go ahead and take care of getting those resistor packs out, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And real quick, so you can see one of the resistor packs here that we just took advantage of the bolts that were bolts into the bumper, and we're able to use that onto a piece of angled aluminum, and you can see our two resistors here. So there's our power line, much like it was up at the top. Literally the factory line just loops into a Y connector, and then the Y connector puts a couple of resistors in parallel. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to undo all of this, take these resistors out of here, and just plug the factory loom directly into the back of the connector for the LED fogs, and we'll get that set in AlfaOBD. So let me go ahead and take care of this and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So just want to show you these resistor packs that were on the LED floodlights, or fog lights, LED fog lights are on the front. That was one side, that was the other side. So years ago when we put them in, again, angled aluminum, and we had the perfect amount of space between the two of the front bolts that bolts the front bumper on. So you can see they've been removed. It was the same as kind of the rest of the setup on this vehicle, in which they're just running resistors via a Y connector in parallel with the LED lights, basically simulating that load of an incandescent bulb. So we since have gone in, as you can see, obviously see, removed the 4 resistors for the fog lights up front, and we went into AlfaOBD just like we have with all the other setting changes today on our lights, and changed those to be front LED fog lights and just set the preset to yes. So we've given the truck a few minutes here to rest after making those changes. So let me pause you for a bit, grab a battery pack because you're almost out of juice, and I'll bring you back and we'll power up the fog lights and see if it complains. So one moment. And welcome back. So we got our lights on. We turned our fog lights on. You can see we got our driver's side fog light, and you can see we got our passenger side fog light. So far it's not complaining. Let's go ahead and just shut all this stuff off. And I believe it's that button there, if I'm not mistaken. It's either that one or it's the center one on the headlight knob. Yeah, it's the center one on the headlight knob. The other one's the cargo light. Keep getting them confused. That should turn it off. Yep, and they're off now. So now we can just go ahead and shut the whole thing down. Definitely gonna have to top the battery off after all this. All right, awesome. Well, with that being said, hold on, let me just wrap things up and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. Well, as you can see, the aftermath of what we accomplished today. We got rid of 4, 8, 12 these resistor packs, which were doing various things to simulate old incandescent bulbs. Again, the 4 here were for the LED fog lights to get the truck to think it still had incandescent fogs. 4 on each side, 2 for low beam headlight, and then 2 for turn signal / parking. And again, as you saw in the video, those have also been replaced, and we went ahead and removed the HID power relay harness. So again, what this harness was doing was taking a trigger from the low beam on the driver's side, so anytime the headlights were on, this relay pack would engage and then take a separate lead off the battery and provide battery power to the ballasts for the HID bulbs themselves on either side of the truck. So again, there's nothing wrong with using this type of setup in a vehicle if you have to use it. We are just taking advantage of the fact that we have a utility, AlfaOBD in this case, that allows us to go in there and change the parameters within the body computer to be able to reflect the fact that we're running LED in a lot of these cases and running much smaller, different resistance and a much smaller amperage draw. So it's now aware of that equipment. It now knows that it's going to be lower amperage draw. It's aware that it's LED. Now the other nice thing is that the lights, as you saw, or at least the front half of the truck, is now running, all the aftermarket lights are now running completely off of the truck's electrical system. So it's plugged into everything and it's aware of it. Now, through changing the settings, which I'll put in the description below, remember we did 4 things via AlfaOBD. We said we had HID headlights, set that to preset to yes. We set the preset for LED turn signals, LED parking, as well as LED fog lights. Now, the one change I didn't make, which you probably saw on the screen, was we did not change it to say that we had LED headlights. It's still set to its factory settings, as well as we left the quad headlight setting alone, because we still need the truck to think that it has quad headlights in it, when in fact now it doesn't. And that's just due to the various adapters and stuff, that one adapter that we use to be able to go from quads to projectors. Now, the reason why we also didn't change that front headlight to be an LED is because if we go over here and look at one of the ballasts, the ballast itself has a, let's see, nominal voltage of 3.2 volts and a nominal amperage draw, it looks to be of 3.2 amps. So this, along with the attached error canceller, as they call it, again, these are, you know, resistor slash capacitor type setups that emulate a resistive load more like an incandescent light. It should continue to see this as what it thinks to be a normal halogen low beam bulb. So again, the settings that we did change were HID preset to yes, LED turn signal to yes, LED parking light to yes, and LED front fog to yes. So once again, I just want to point out that there's nothing wrong with these particular setups they use. In cases in which you can't change the configuration on your vehicle and you have incandescence and you have to go with something like LED, then typically, you know, you'll be dealing with some kind of resistor pack or, you know, power relay harness, things of that nature. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. Unless you've got a way, again, of changing the settings within the vehicle to say, hey, you no longer have incandescent bulbs installed, you have LEDs. So, and as you can see, we ran this for years, and it worked fine. No issue with any of this. We just took advantage of the fact that we had to do what we thought was a minor repair to the ballast, but then we discovered was actually an issue with the relay harness. But while we were in there, we went ahead and just deinstalled all of our resistors, because eventually it was our plan to do so. So it was kind of while you're in there type scenario. Now, with all that being said, you probably saw on the screens that there is options to set LED tails to yes in this vehicle as well. Now, if you've watched the previous videos for this Ram, we did install a 5th gen set of LED tails, which the adapter harness came with a resistor, not as big a resistors as these, but it did come with a smaller resistor pack, again, to get that rear LED tail to mimic more of an incandescent. Now, in a future video, I think what we'll do is we'll take the tails out, remove the resistor pack, again, use AlfaOBD to change the configuration of LED tails and see if we can get rid of the resistors in the rear as well. Anyway, with all that being said, I hope you found this video helpful. A little bit long on the tooth. I did get a little bit sidetracked. I inadvertently condemned a HID ballast when I should not have. The issue there was, even though we had voltage to it, what I did not do yesterday was load test it. Let that be a lesson to you. Learn from my mistake. Just because you have voltage at a connector doesn't mean the connection is good enough to carry sufficient amount of current. And I think that's what the issue is here. So even though this relay is working and we were getting 12 volts to the driver's side ballast connector, I think the issue is we've got corrosion, or we've got a problem with one of the two relays here, in which it's just not passing enough current to get that ballast to work. But again, no harm, no foul. We discovered that we can completely remove it and just attach it to the vehicle's electrical system. So with that being said, hopefully you found the video helpful. If you have not subscribed, please consider doing so. We're still marching towards that 3K goal for the end of the year. If you have subscribed already, I do thank you immensely. And with that being said, I will let you go, and I will bring you back for the next one. Thank you much. Bye.